Government has released the 911 tape that initiated a sequence of events that could or would result in the death by police shooting of South African Lindani Myeni on April the 14th. A distraught woman speaking in broken English is heard on the phone, sounding at times distraught and terrified as the dispatcher seeks to understand what is going on in the home. The Myeni family attorney Jim Bickerton told SABC News that the tapes were released after they issued a notice to depose the caller when they had managed to independently identify her. This is how the call began.
Police emergency. Hello, what's your address?
Hello.
What's your address?
Please.
What's your address?
It's 91 kilometers away.
What's your name?
Someone entered my house.
Do you know who they are?
He said he's Lindon. He said South Africa.
Do you know who he is personally? Do you know this man?
I know him.
Okay.
I know this man.
What's he wearing?
He's in the house.
What is he wearing? What color is his clothes?
It's a black T-shirt.
What is he? Asian, white, black? Hello. What kind of ethnicity is he?
But
Officers are on the way. Can you tell me what he looks like?
I don't know whether he knows our owner or not, but he just randomly coming and say some strange words.
Okay, so what is he white? Is he black? Is he local?
I don't know him.
I understand you don't know him. I'm asking you what he looks like. So if he runs away, officers can find him.
No, what's going on here?
Okay.
So what does he look like? Is he white? Is he black? Is he Asian?
He's black.
So the dispatcher tries to keep the caller calm as she seeks to establish additional information, asking if Myeni was armed with a gun, a knife, bat or stick. The response in audio is difficult to decipher. The caller is heard saying that Myeni said something, but she doesn't know what it means. This is how the call continued until the police arrived and Myeni was shot.
Ma'am, can you go outside and meet the officers, please?
I don't know why.
It's okay. Can you go outside and look for the policeman?
He tried to go outside. I don't know.
Okay, so he's outside now?
No, he's inside, but he's close to the front door.
Okay, so you can't get outside. Okay, I understand. Officers are coming, okay? They're going to be there soon.
He's outside. He's outside.
Okay.
I think he's following us when we...
He's following you think?
Yeah, he's driving a car when we come to the neighborhood.
Okay, so what kind of car does he have?
I'm so afraid to go outside to check.
It's okay. You don't have to go outside if you don't feel safe doing it. Do you remember what kind of car he had? Do you remember what kind of car?
Car is here. He's still in the community. I think the police officer can stop him.
Okay. Officers are... Okay. They're on the way. Do you remember what the car looks like?
Yeah, I saw another people.
Okay, what car?
That's him. What? That's him. He's still in the car. That's him. To office that work here.
The call there. He's attacking the call.
Oh my God. Tell the supervisor I think I just heard shots fired. Stateside burglary.
Yes, Correspondent Sherwin Bryce-Pease has been following these developments, and he joins us now from New York. Sherwin, just listening to that very disturbing audio, you've now had a statement from the Myeni family attorney reacting to the contents of this tape. What are they saying?
Yeah, a lengthy statement shared with us by Jim Bickerton, the family attorney. And remember, Tsepiso, their aim here has been to shift the narrative away from this notion that this was a burglary, certainly the narrative that was put out there by the Honolulu Police Department. So they've been working really to understand the facts. And I think a first step is the release of this 911 recording. Jim Bickerton says that Lindani arrived by car at the Airbnb, which is next door to a temple, and said who he was and which country he was from. The caller clearly talks about him saying his name was Lyndon or Lindani and that he's from South Africa. He talks about how in the background of the caller one can hear two men having a conversation. We believe it to be Lindani engaged in a normal volume conversation with the caller's husband. They are also indicating that they will be retaining forensic experts to analyze this 911 tape further. He says that this was plainly not a burglary or any other crime, just a misunderstanding, Tsepiso. Lindani was not armed, not threatening anyone, and no voices were raised. Lindani had no idea that the police were being summoned. The caller's husband distracted him with conversation before ushering him out of the door while the police were being called. The caller and her husband have not come forward to defend their conduct, showing that they know that they committed a wrong in overreacting and sending an innocent and unknowing man into the dark night with armed police on the way. Lindani left the Airbnb front door peacefully. He probably walked back to his car that was parked in the driveway. There were no sirens or sounds of police approaching. The 911 recording thus confirms the accounts of witnesses who say there were no sirens and lights used by police. At the 5-minute mark in the call, Lindani is being commanded to get on the ground, while the caller, who inexplicably, despite her high-strung and hysterical state, has been urged by the 911 dispatcher to go outside and coordinate with the arriving police officers, and then shouts, "That's him, that's him." Stunningly, Bickerton ends, this is happening just 70 seconds after Lindani walked out of the front door. Given his last polite interaction with the caller's husband, there is no way Lindani could imagine that the rough-talking thug, seemingly acting under the hysterical woman's commands and walking towards him from the house just 70 seconds after he left it, is a police officer. And I think from that call, the one thing we can take away, Tsepiso, is how the escalation happens in the woman's voice. That's the complainant here. Once Lindani has actually left the house, he's left the house, and the hysteria at that point then increases. Her tone shifts, even as her safety is increased, particularly in her mind, by the departure of the suspect from the home, right? The burglary that was undertaken. She gets more and more excitable as he leaves and to go to his car. So lots of questions certainly that we have here now.
So, Sherwin, there have been three major developments then since Myeni died on the 14th of April. A wrongful death lawsuit having been filed, an independent probe of the investigation has been launched by the Honolulu prosecuting attorney, another release of this 911 recording. So what do you foresee as the timelines regarding the conclusion of all of these?
Yeah, it's a question I asked Jim Bickerton earlier this week, particularly in terms of the wrongful death lawsuit that they filed. Remember, this was done, Tsepiso, because information they were requesting and the release of certain evidentiary documents and items, including Myeni's ring, his wedding ring, his cell phone, so that they can see who he was interacting before this incident took place. Those requests have gone unresponded to by the Honolulu Police Department, and so that precipitated the launch of this lawsuit. That then created some momentum, and we saw Steve Elm, the Honolulu prosecuting attorney, essentially that has jurisdiction over that area, launching an independent probe. And Steve Elm, speaking at a press conference earlier this week, talked about how They want to be seen to be transparent in this process because they felt that there were certainly going to be questions asked about the Honolulu Police Department investigating their own officers. So you have that investigation by the police department and now a separate independent probe by the prosecuting attorney in Honolulu. And of course now momentum added to that with the 911 tapes. Jim Bickerton said that the wheels of justice will be turning slowly here. The prosecutor that's investigating said he's not going to be releasing any timelines. They want to be meticulous. They've appointed senior investigators and prosecutors to investigate this case. So if we were going to base it on anything from recent times, perhaps the George Floyd timeline in that case, we're looking at months towards a year, yeah.
So why is this case not getting the kind of national attention we've seen in other instances of police killings in the United States? Now, we understand that there have been small pickets in Honolulu, but nothing on the mainland, so to speak. So what seems to be the reason behind this dichotomy?
Yeah, it's a difficult one to answer. Geography perhaps is one of the reasons. Hawaii is situated all by itself, an archipelago of islands in the Pacific, about 3 hours flight from the west coast of the United States. So it's a little bit removed from the mainland, so maybe not generating quite as much attention. Also, we're told by Jim Bickerton that the black population on the island is relatively small, so you're not seeing the kind of groundswell of protests that one might have seen perhaps in cities on the mainland. In addition to the fact that there are just so many of these cases, Tsepiso, we just most recently, the Makia Bryant shot, the 16-year-old shot by police in Ohio, Andrew Brown shot execution style by police in North Carolina. There's a lot of distraction in the United States in terms of the same issue, right? Police using violence against black and brown men in this country. But I can tell you, certainly having watched this case progress over the last number of weeks, we are seeing a greater deal of momentum now, and I think the independent probe launched by the prosecutor in Honolulu adds some wind at the back of certainly the alternative narrative that the Myeni family attorneys have been pursuing here.
I've no doubt shown that there is one former resident of Hawaii with which this issue is stuck in his craw. Sherwin Bryce-Pease, our correspondent in the United States in New York. And it brings us to time for sport.